Family businesses employ more people in the world than any other kind. They give away more money to their communities. So for me to make huge positive ripples in the world, it's how can I help family businesses be happier, healthier, stronger? Most next generation family business leaders and owners are doing that work because they think they have to versus they get to. My wish would be that zero next generation family business owners do it because they have to.
Strengthen the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle in your family business. This is Fearless Family Business. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fearless Family Business Show. My name is Adam Hill, and I am really excited to share this episode with you because, frankly, I'm talking to one of my heroes in family business. And, Sara B, who joins me today, has been one of my heroes in the world of family business since I first heard her speak a few years ago at the EOS conference. She was speaking on family business and the 3 circles model, which we'll get into in this show, and it blew my mind. And we'll talk about that. I'll explain why in the interview. But one of the things I discovered in learning more about Sara Stern in the world of EOS and in the world of family business is that she's well known for really changing the way that we look at family business from the old kind of stuffy way of looking at estate plans and tax strategies and things like that, which of course are important, but more towards the idea of how we can re-engage in the critical conversations we need to have and do them now and really, really dig deep to build those relationships in family business. She's really, really aligned with the values that we have in this show to strengthen the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle. And I know that if you're struggling in your family business to incorporate that communication, to incorporate that succession strategy or transition strategy, that she can help you do that too from a real human way. And so who is Sara B. Stern? Well, other than the fact that her name is literally a command, which of course doesn't remotely get close to describing her typical way of walking through the world, she is a certified EOS implementer. She was trained in 2015 in EOS, and today she's a certified EOS implementer. She's also a certified coach, as she's been since 2001. She's a person who's completed a master's degree in organizational leadership. And she's also the former director of a nationally recognized family business center. And all of those things kind of accumulate to make her one of the guiding forces in family business advising. And most importantly, she's a huge fan of family business, which makes it more impressive that she works with family businesses to help them because she's passionate about it. And you'll see that passion come to life in this interview. It's really amazing when I ask her some questions on how she's developed this enthusiasm. It really comes from the heart, and it's really amazing. In addition to that, she was raised in a family business, much like me. She was born into a family business and even worked in some of those roles early in her life, developing those early experiences. And as she put it, really developing that nostalgic sense of family business, from the smells to the sounds to the different experiences in family business that really stick with us over our lives. And so she now has a passion to help other family businesses get healthy, which is really what she's doing today. And so I'm really, really excited to have this interview. If you can't tell already, we had a great time. This is a great interview. And I know you'll get a lot from it. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Sara B. Stern. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fearless Family Business Show. I am really excited about this episode. I've been looking forward to this episode probably since before I even thought about doing this show. That's how excited I'm about it, because I have Sara B. Stern with me today. She's a certified EOS implementer. She's a family business advisor and a family business enthusiast. And, I covered all of that in the intro, but I'm covering it again because it's just that important. I appreciate you being here, Sara. Thank you, first of all, for being here. I'm really grateful that you are taking the time for me today.
I am super thrilled to be here. This podcast helped mold the way I think about my business. So this is really fun.
Wow, that is a huge compliment coming from you, because you did this very same thing a couple of years ago, and I just want to kind of tell that story about how I first learned about Sara Stern. It was 2022, so not long ago, and I was at my first EOS conference, and we'd been implementing EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, for about a year or so at that point, and I'd never made the connection between EOS and family business before. I thought I was the first one to ever do that in our family business. But then I went into a session where Sara Stern was hosting it, because it was called something along the lines of how to implement EOS in your family business, or things to the, I don't remember what it was called, so I apologize. But the first thing you drew on the board was simply 3 circles, and it blew my mind. I didn't realize 3 circles could blow my mind. And being from a 4th generation family business that's 100 years old, I realized later, I'm like, why is this the first time I'm hearing about this? So first of all, I want to dig into that a little bit. But before we get into the meat of that, I'd really love to hear about your history and how you've come up in the family business world. You were raised in a family business, so maybe can you share a little bit about that, and then we'll get in.
Yeah, I was raised in a family business. My dad and my uncle ran an auto repair shop. My mom and my aunt took turns either being at the shop, as we called it, or doing childcare. And I just learned a lot watching them run the business, me jumping in and trying to help from time to time, which is a whole different story and kind of ridiculous, and probably a common family business story. But I knew growing up that it was my job, this is coming from my parents, to go do something that makes a positive difference in the world. And it wasn't actually until I was in my 20s that I realized that was helping leaders of businesses run better businesses. And then it was in my 30s that I got really specific and said, wow, if I want to make a really big difference in the world, I should help family businesses, because family businesses employ more people than any other kind of business on the planet.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've heard the statistics on that. There's something like 60% of the GDP is brought in by family businesses. And I've heard even statistics of upwards of like 80% of businesses in the world are family businesses. And we just don't think about that.
It's insane. I was blown away when I first saw the numbers in the US, which is about 2/3 of the businesses. But we're actually a little bit low when you look around the world, where it's 80 or 90% in many countries. So if you want to make a difference, help a family business leader run a great business.
Yeah, 100%. I know we were my wife and I were just in Europe and just walking around some of these, realizing how much older a lot of these countries are compared to the United States. They've had a long time to have family business history. So you're seeing things like established 1600s or whatever. It's insane to see a lot of that around the world. So when you're thinking about your history and kind of first starting in that auto repair shop, I have similar memories of our family business and just kind of like having to, fill little bags of fibers and stuff like that. What were some of your first experiences or reflections on working at a family business when you were that young? What comes up for you when you think about those experiences?
There's so many. I love that you talk about filling a bag with fibers, right? There's these visceral memories. Yes. The smell of an auto repair shop still smells like childhood to me. The ding of a bell in places where it's an auto repair shop and they sell gas, which is what we had. So cars will drive over this hose. It causes a bell to ring, and then to get out of the engine and go, accept money, because back when I was growing up, people actually had to come into the gas station to pay for stuff. Wild. Right. My sisters and my cousins were very close in age. Back in those days, you put the price of gas with literally orange plywood numbers. And so we would hold these numbers, things like that. So very visceral things. But beyond that, even though next generation family business kids, I think, have this unfortunate reputation of being entitled and not having a work ethic, that is so not the case in most situations. The funny story is I thought I was helping my dad fix cars when he would throw a broken screw or whatever on the ground, I'd go fetch it and give it to him. He didn't need it, but he was
Right.
really nice to me. He'd say, "Oh, thanks." But I was cleaning the bathroom. If I was homesick from school, I was usually at the shop watching my mom take money, talk to people. I was organizing files and, helping in the office. And I think that's the experience that most of these next generation folks have that is so opposite of the way Hollywood likes to portray, growing up in a family business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I'd love to do an episode in the future where I just talk about things like Arrested Development or Succession or, the different shows that really reflect the worst of the worst kinds of thoughts of what family businesses are like. And then it's not
Which
like
are
that.
not even close to what the reality is. I just saw a thing on LinkedIn the other day. It was a kid who looked like he was maybe 11. He was, checking somebody out at the restaurant. He was on the phone. He was taking an order, and he was barely tall enough to get his head over the counter. I think that's more of what I wish Hollywood would show.
Yeah. It would be neat to have a real, I agree, a real show about that kind of stuff. It's funny when we talk about things like Arrested Development, we're a little close on the nose to that. We're an Orange County business, a multi-generational, literally my grandfather lived in Balboa. It was, there was, there's a lot of correlations there. So it was a hilarious show, by the way. I love that show, but it was a little, hit a little cose to the bone a lot of times.
Are you saying Arrested Development is based on your family business?
I'm not saying that directly, but there's some, I think there was some artistic license, but I digress. But
I love it. I need to go watch that show. I've watched a couple of episodes. I need to watch it from the beginning all the way to the end.
Yeah. It's really good. I mean, when you can make fun of yourself in this world of, family business, it makes it more fun. And I like to say we're a lot like that. We can be a lot like that family minus the corruption and silly senses of humor, but in an exaggerated format.
That's awesome.
And so, that kind of actually brings us into a lot of what I wanted to talk about with you today too, is you have a different approach to, how you help family businesses and work with them. That is kind of non-traditional. You're talking about entitlement and how we kind of misinterpret that, or maybe other ways that we misinterpret how the family business should be running. So can you talk a little bit about that, how your approach is different to working with family businesses?
I would love to. And thank you for asking me that question. I am so passionate about this. What I see a lot of family business advising look like, and I'm not saying all of it, but a lot of what I see, whether it's attorneys or financial advisors, but especially those who are helping a family business navigate conflict, relationships, succession, those pieces, is the attitude is, I am the advisor and you need somebody who's very smart and very capable and wears a super nice suit and writes very long sentences that with fancy words in the proposal and charge huge amounts of money because that brings credibility. And a lot of advisors are perceived as very credible, especially when they are the ones who kind of hold the, what is the metaphor I want to use? They hold all the knowledge and all the information.
Yeah.
And my approach is pretty much the opposite. I guess I did dress up for this podcast today. I have a jacket on, trying to look like a grown-up, right? But
me too. We were like dressing up for each other. We should have just come in hoodies and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it would have been fine.
should have shown up like we actually are, right?
Right.
So I won't show that I'm wearing my pajama bottoms here. But anyway, yeah, that's not true. But now I wish it was true. Anyway,
right.
So my feeling is it's better. Well, I'll also say this. The lion's share of family business advisors are also looking to serve family business clients, the very, very large family businesses. Mm-hmm. So my approach is I'm really interested in the family businesses that have, maybe up to 500 or 1,000 employees total. Mm-hmm. So the ones that are perceived as smaller. I'm really interested in being the, if I will, in air quotes, the dumb guy with the whiteboard in the room, helping the conversations that need to happen, that have been waiting to happen for either years or decades or generations, just helping them get out on the table. Mm-hmm. So my approach is, I've created a system to work with family businesses when we're looking at succession and when we're looking at ownership. I can come in with that knowledge in my head, but it's I have a sense of what conversation needs to happen first and then second and then third, so we can get the important stuff written down on a piece of paper. But if I'm the smartest one in the room, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And the other thing is, I want family businesses to not need to pay an advisor year after year after year after year. And so it's my job to get my family business clients to be able to sit around a table and talk with each other as many times as we need to do that, or I should say as few times as we need to do that, for them to be able to continue the conversation without me showing up in the room.
Oh, that's great. I love that. And I mean, a lot of times, that is a lot of what seems to be on the forefront is kind of the stuffy, like, let's look at estate planning or legacy planning. And that is a very, very, I feel like there's a gatekeeper kind of mentality on that. Like, I hold the keys to this estate planning thing, and then I'm not going to, share it. And all that knowledge sits with me, speaking from the standpoint of that advisor. But what seems to be missing is a lot of what you're saying, which is so important, which is the discussions, the conversations that happen within the business or are not happening within the business. And that's the very problem. It's not the fact that your succession or your legacy plan or your estate plan isn't rock solid or your tax strategy is this or that. Those are important, but the communication, that's where the sustainability of that business lies. And I'm so glad you're approaching it that way.
I love the way you put that. I can't wait to listen to the podcast in the future and then give you credit for talking about how I work with family businesses. That language was so well put. Thank you. I'm a firm believer that you can spend tens of thousands of dollars and write down things like bylaws, buy-sell agreements, define how a board works. And it doesn't matter what's written down. People are going to behave the way they behave. And so let's actually first get around a table, figure out how we want to behave together, and then write that down as this is how it's going to be. Because what's written on a piece of paper is really irrelevant if people aren't going to follow what it says. So let's have the paper represent how we're actually behave or how we actually want things to go. And please, let's not write things down and then keep it a secret until after we die. I don't know who thought that was the way to do family business succession and why that concept took off. But whoever did the marketing for that concept was really good at their job. And it's a travesty in my book. It's just, that's what movies are made of. And someday when that stops being a thing, I will have a big party.
Yeah. I saw your LinkedIn post on that the other day, and I love your LinkedIn posts, by the way, where you kind of write letters to the family business owners, advisors, or members. Yeah, it's great. Like, and that one was just like, and that was like, thank you very much, because what is it that prevents, I guess the current ownership or the current, those that are kind of that gatekeeper to want to share that information openly? What are they afraid they're going to maybe imprint some level of entitlement, or is there some reason they're doing, or they're going to have some conflict before they die, or what do you think that is?
Yeah. I think it's a couple things. I think you just touched on two of them. And I love that you mentioned in the intro those three circles. So the 3-circle model of family business is something that Harvard defined in 1978. And it's this idea that in a family business, there's a family, there's also a business, and they do overlap a little, but mostly they're kind of separate. And then there's a third circle, which is ownership, which overlaps with the family and it overlaps with the business. And I think here you were a couple years ago, 4th generation in your family business. You'd never seen it. My assumption is nobody else in your family had seen it either. Because usually when people see it for the first time, it's an epiphany. And they want to tell other people about it. So I think a lot of family business owners, current owners, live in a world where there's 3 circles, but they're all on top of each other. It's a business and it's a family and it's ownership. And it's my job to please everybody in all 3 of those circles, which is absolutely impossible. You will never, ever, ever do that. And because that's so stressful and so intense, they say, I'm going to go in a quiet room and I'm going to make a plan and I'm going to cross my fingers that they'll all be happy with it when I'm gone. And I do think that's done out of very good intentions, or there are very good intentions that drive that. But unfortunately, those good intentions cause their most important people to have to deal with grief and surprise at the same time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd never thought about it that way. Yeah.
That's the toxic cocktail of grief and surprise is just, I mean, you might as well just leave poison behind when you die
Sure.
for your family. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard it framed like that, but that makes absolute sense that, you're grieving the loss of somebody you love. And now this surprise of like how things are going to be managed or, please, people, anybody that's listening to this, please make that plan and communicate it widely so that you can deal with it now while everybody's healthy and not in that situation where it comes back, after somebody passes and all of that. That's terrible. Yeah.
I heard this amazing talk, actually at the EOS conference, a woman named Tiffany Souter, and I hope I'm saying her last name right. I think it was that conference that you're talking about.
Yep.
Some advice her father gave her. Now, she wasn't next generation in her business, but she was next generation in an entrepreneurial business. Her dad said, if you make a hard decision, it means, and I'm not quoting her dad perfectly here, but the idea was you make a hard decision that's painful. What you're doing is trading this pain for pain that you already have. And I think a lot of humans forget that. And in particular, in family business, people forget that they're actually in pain right now. Mm-hmm. And so there is pain now. And when you announce the pain being, what's going to happen when mom dies? What's going to happen when grandpa dies? That kind of thing. That is painful. And there's confusion and there's mistrust or distrust or miscommunication happening. It's not like it's all roses right now. Then when you announce it, it might be painful and people might be mad and people might have conflict, but you're just training that pain for this pain. And when you do that, what you get in the future is hopefully zero pain, but for sure less pain.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reminded, I think maybe it's Gino Wickman that said this, but what is it? And he mentioned it more towards the terms of, getting right people, right seats and having to make the difficult people decisions, but it's 36 hours of pain for a lifetime of freedom or something along that. Right.
Same idea.
Sounds very similar. Yeah.
Same idea.
And so you work with families to help them plan this succession, this transition strategy. And how do you start those conversations? Because I imagine it may not just be you coming in and saying, hey, you guys need to have this conversation and really throwing that dynamite in the room. And I'm sure it has to come from within in some way to start that process. How do we start that conversation with maybe the ownership generation or the generation that needs to start that conversation?
I would say I'm making up a statistic here. Mm-hmm. Because did you know, Adam, 17% of statistics are made up on the spot?
I don't doubt it.
Anyway, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10 when I'm brought in, not in the business conversation, but in the ownership or succession conversation, it's a next generation woman who is seeing a future train wreck and wants to get ahead of it, wants to get, something cleared off the tracks. And usually what she is seeing, but it's not always she and it's not always next generation, but it often is. Usually what she's seeing is, oh boy, we have one owner in the current generation and 4 potential owners in the next generation, and 2 of them work in the business and only one of them is qualified, and there's a mom or a dad pulling strings over here on the side. And if we don't start to get stuff organized, we're not going to be talking to each other anymore in the future. And I gave you the most grim scenario, but it's usually someone who's starting to look out and say, ooh, if we continue in this direction, things are not going to go well. And it's really beyond how do we run the business day to day. It's how do we figure out ownership? How do we figure out how the family works together? Kind of those kinds of questions. Yeah. And that's how it usually starts. But the first question I would say that people are asking themselves before they're talking to me is, how do we fix this? Or how do we get ahead of this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's the ownership circle in that 3-circle model that is most qualified to get ahead of issues.
Mm-hmm. And I guess so when a lot of that ownership, maybe that ownership circle may have a blind spot at best, and maybe is willingly, maybe negligent at worst of wanting to go there into that dark forest, so to speak. How would that person who may be like seeing these red flags down the line, how would they start that conversation? How would they start to go there? And at what time should they engage with someone like yourself to really help with the process?
Yeah. I would say, and I can only tell you my experience from this side of the phone, if you will.
Yeah.
But usually that person is seeing like, oh, we have to figure out succession, or we're going into a dark forest here, or both. Mm-hmm. And they're calling to say, what should we do? What should we think about? And for me, if the current owners and future owners are able to sit around a table and talk, I can speak well about that. If they can't sit around and talk, they need somebody who has some therapy or some psychology training mm-hmm. to help them actually be able to talk to each other. So that's step one. If people just can't even talk, you've got to go find a therapist or a psychologist who can really help you figure out how to talk to each other. As long as you can talk to each other, what I say is the first step is one of three. I usually give people, what are these three choices? One is grab a book to read together and, have a ownership book club. Mm-hmm. I wrote a book called Start Here, A Guide for Family Business Succession. That's a great book choice, but it's not the only book choice. I just found people didn't know where to start, so I wrote a book called Start Here, right? So here's where you begin. Second option is find a local family business center and get to know other family businesses, and that will give you a million excuses to have a million conversations.
Yeah.
And the third option is if somebody says, no, we're really ready to start considering something that would be for us. I like to sit down with the owners for 90 minutes and give them the 3-circle model, mm-hmm. give them a handful of questions that they'll need to answer to get going. I actually help them start having those conversations right away. And whether or not they want to engage with me, at least they have some tools in their hands that they can use. And then if they want to engage with me, I have a process that I take them through that walks them through step by step by step.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And just the whole idea of joining a community. I mean, that's such a powerful way of getting the feedback that you need or whatever help you need. I read your book, Start Here, which is, by the way, super quick, easy to digest, read, and very, very powerful in terms of like the way to do it. A lot of the things that we need to do to move forward in the area we need to go are super simple. The hard part is all up here, or just that challenge. So if you could have the tools that Sara presents to you, now just have the courage to go into that dark forest and have the conversations, and of course engage with Sara. And by the way, Sara has a weekly office hours that she has called Family Business Office Hours, where I guess you can call in. Is that right? Or just zoom in and maybe ask any questions you might have. No obligation, kind of free of charge thing.
Yeah, and it's I do it every other week. Although I'm thinking about every week, so I don't know. Maybe you just made it officially every week. Who knows? But every other Monday, and I like to say it's kind of like. One part radio show you call into, although it's Zoom, but not everybody shows their face or their name when they come in. So it's kind of like they're listening to a radio show. It's one part disorganized stand-up because I'm kind of goofy. And then it's one part a little bit like, the write-in Ann Landers kind of thing. Here's my family business situation. What do I do? I start it by saying, what happens here stays here. We follow the Las Vegas rules. You're not calling to get dirt on some other family business. You're here to learn. You're here to learn for your own family business. And I say to people, you can show your face and your real name. You can show a fake name. You can, chat me in Zoom directly or put it for everybody. Because some people need or want anonymity. But I share maybe 5 to 8 minutes of a way to think about your family business that is hopefully something you can act on that day. And then I open up for questions, and I love the questions I get. I mean, some are literally, what is an agenda you would recommend now that I'm ready to have owners meetings? Some are, how do I fire my sister? And everywhere in between.
Yeah. That's so great. And I'm sure it gives you an opportunity to kind of get some data points too on what family businesses are thinking about and how to really respond to that. But it's so good that there's that safe place. I think that's desperately needed. And so I'm glad you're putting it out there.
Oh, thank you. It's, I call it my shot of vitamin family business every other week. I just leave like all on fire, like, yes, this is so thrilling. I love it. I provide it. It looks like I'm being generous.
Yeah.
I'm being selfish. I get so much out of it. It's incredible. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this too, because I love that enthusiasm over family business. And I guess for some of us who are in it, maybe it doesn't always feel that way. Like like in this show, like I talk about wanting to kind of strengthen the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle that we live, because that's what we want from family business. I think those three things kind of encapsulate it. But for those of us who are in it and maybe struggle to find that, where's that enthusiasm that you're feeling coming from, and how can we maybe re-inject that into our own businesses?
First of all, love, legacy, and lifestyle. That is good. Oh, I love it. That's so good. That's so good. Well, right there, that's one thing. My enthusiasm comes from a couple of places. The first being what I already said. Family businesses employ more people in the world than any other kind. They give away more money to their communities than any other kind of business or any other thing, like any other concept or thing. I don't even know what to call it, but they give huge amounts of money and time too, just in volunteering, in leadership, et cetera. So for me, to make huge positive ripples in the world, it's how can I help family businesses be healthier, happier, stronger, have a love, legacy, lifestyle. Amazing.
Right.
But for people inside of family businesses, how do I answer that question? How could I help you kind of re-engage with the amazing part of yourselves? So that is a heck of a question. Because to me, it's like, no, duh, it's amazing. Look at you. And maybe that's it. Like your everyday work. First of all, people in family businesses are freakishly brave. Freakishly brave. You work with arguably the most important people in your lives. You have decided to cross the streams there as the Ghostbusters. They say don't do it, right? And there's a reason the Ghostbusters say that. I don't understand the Ghostbusters guns, but I do understand crossing the streams of family and your livelihood. Like, that is insanely brave. I wish more people inside of family businesses realized how brave they are every day. Instead, I think you feel the stress of the bravery, not the reality of, wow, you are brave. The second thing is, because so many people in family businesses work so hard and have such high expectations, you walk around saying, well, we didn't do it again. We didn't do it again. We didn't do it again, right? You see the gap. You don't see the huge gain of keeping, in many situations, really good jobs local in your community, which is a massive impact for your employees and for your communities. There's a Marvin Windows is a family business in Minnesota. There have been stories generation after generation in that family of them not laying people off when the economy is terrible. And their headquarter is in a tiny town in Minnesota, where if they did lay people off, the town suffers hugely.
Yeah.
All the restaurants suffer, all the schools suffer, everybody suffers. So, I mean, that's just one little story, and there's millions of those around the world of family businesses doing that. So you're doing something brave, you're doing something huge, and you're doing the hardest thing. You're just doing the hardest thing. I don't know. Maybe that just reminds you of how hellish your life is.
No,
I don't know.
I love that perspective because I think it captures something. And if I'm hearing it correctly, what it is like, yes, you're immersed in the day to day of the challenges, the obstacles, all of the struggle and all of the stress of trying to manage, family dynamics within the business, with keeping people employed that are contributing and having this huge weight of responsibility. And you're also look at what that's resulting in. Look at the contributions that's making. Look at the courage that it takes. Look at the personal growth that develops from that. Look what benefits can come from that. And so when you reframe it like that, the way you just did, I think that it's hard not to be enthusiastic about it and find that and know that you can find that passion in it, even if it's hard. Most things that are worthwhile are obviously hard.
Yeah.
So, family business is one of those things, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, that's really well put. And you know what? This is what just hit me is what I have seen is I don't want to say most, maybe it's most, but for sure, many next generation family business leaders and owners are doing that work because they think they have to versus they get to. And so my wish, if I could go poof and change one thing in the world, it would be that zero next generation family business owners do it because they have to. And they either stop doing it because they don't have to, or they find what it is about owning and running that family business that they want, way beyond just keeping the family, making sure the family business doesn't die on their watch.
Yes.
That life, just keeping it alive because you have to is just no fun. And is a very sad thing in my book. And I would rather see family businesses get sold or closed than having next generation people running it because they have to. And I do think there's a lot of people out there doing it because they have to.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see a switch from either I get to or I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, I like that perspective, and that sounds very liberating to people who may think that there's only one option, which is let's just keep this thing going. And there are more options than that. There's no shame in admitting to not wanting to keep it going in the next generation and selling it, and maybe now having some resources to put into that next opportunity that they want to build. There's no shame in that. And I love that you kind of talk about maybe removing that stigma in some ways. Yeah,
that's, whenever I get my magic wand in the mail, that's the first magic I'm going to magic. So
I love it. Well, I know you touched on the 3 circles model a little bit, and I'd like to maybe expand on that, on just maybe touch, because this was so powerful for me. And if nobody's ever heard of this, you mentioned it was a Harvard business model in the 1970s. It represents family ownership and the business kind of in this concentric Venn diagram. So how should we be thinking of each of those segments, the family, the ownership, and the business, as it relates to that model?
Ooh. Do you have the rest of the day, Adam? So I can just talk for 6 hours straight?
Yeah, why don't you condense that into 2 minutes? No,
okay, easy.
Totally.
Here's the one thing is they do overlap, right? They're in the very middle, the business and the family and the ownership all overlap. And in the ideal world, what you do is get yourself to the outside of that model. You attempt to put yourself in the business circle and just run a great business when you're running a great business. Don't worry about how it affects the family. Don't worry about the owners. When you're in the family, run a great family, have a great family, have a healthy family. Same for ownership. And that's like, okay, cute, Sarah, what does that mean? What I mean by that is, and it's the easiest way to draw this is in the business, is don't hire people because of their last name, or refuse to fire people because of their last name, or pay them more or pay them less, which, by the way, most family businesses pay their family members less. Again,
Yes.
Hollywood gets that wrong. Most
Right.
people working in a family business who have the last name are making way below market rate. Anyway,
Yeah.
So it's run a great business, because when you run a great businesses have profit. Profit goes to the family, it goes to the owners. And there's this amazing correlation I've noticed between more money and happiness. You hamper the inside of your business by forcing people to be employed or not firing them. You have less profit. Then you have an unhappy family for two reasons. There's not enough money, or there's less money, and the high performers inside of the business are pissed at the low performers. So now you've shot your family twice. Like, ugh. So that's what I mean by do your best to just run a great business and then have a great family, meaning don't have business meetings at your family reunion. Just spend time together.
Yeah.
And then as owners, focus on ownership stuff. Don't focus on family stuff or business stuff. And what I say ownership stuff is figuring out how to maximize opportunity for your family and your business, while at the same time minimizing risk for the family and the business. That's ownership stuff.
That's really great. I love it. And thank you for condensing that. I was actually really surprised that you were able to condense that down into 2 minutes. That's
Was it
really
2?
impressive.
Oh, God.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was really good.
Okay.
But I mean, it's so important because I think ultimately, in this interview, we've covered a lot of that. We scratched the surface, but we've covered the standpoint of the ownership and the family circles where you're working in. You're helping ownership kind of get that structure. You're talking about the family and how we can build that communication in. And now there's the business piece of, you kind of touched on running that business like a business. And I think this is where I may be so bold as to say this may be how you discovered EOS might play a good role in that business side. We started implementing it back in 2021 in our business, and it changed it. It made me realize that EOS, before I even knew EOS was really made by somebody who worked in a family business, I realized it was made for it because it put that system in place to actually build in the communication. So how did you get your start with becoming an EOS implementer, and how has that affected your approach to family businesses or impacted on how you've worked with them?
Yeah, so in 2013, is that right? Yeah, it was probably 2013. I was running a family business center and had all these people from family businesses coming to talk with me about their struggles. And I had the 3-circle model in my head. And I was a huge fan of Patrick Lencioni and a huge fan of Jim Collins and a huge fan of the concept of having a unique ability. And I kept saying, there's got to be a way to make this easier for people. It just seems like such a bowl of spaghetti. How do we make it better? And I started trying to figure out how to make it better. And then I found this crazy thing called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It was like, oh, good, somebody else figured out how to make it better. And then it was such an incredible discovery to see that Gino Wickman was working shoulder to shoulder with his dad when he started figuring out these concepts. And he was a huge fan of Patrick Lencioni and Jim Collins and read a whole bunch of other books I didn't read and came up with this beautiful system. And that's for sure. The thing that really had me fall in love with EOS is that it helps a company get clear on their vision and then get traction toward that vision. And then that third thing of helping them be healthy, that's what got me.
Amen. Yeah, amen.
That's built into the whole system, sitting down and being open and honest and vulnerable and saying all the hard things to each other's faces, not to everybody else's faces. Oh, it's so glorious.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you seen the businesses you've worked with transform based on just implementing that in their business? Have you seen that transformation from kind of the inside out where it affects the family and the ownership? Have you seen anything like that?
I've seen so many incredible things happen. And so many. The most powerful thing that I saw happen was the founder of a business, who had his wife in the business and two of his daughters, which was not all of his kids, but two of his daughters in the business. They were trying to figure out, he was ready. He'd given his heart and his soul and his time, and he was ready to have some time away from the business. Mm-hmm. And he had led their sales team from the beginning. And they were trying to figure out who should lead the sales team going forward. And his daughter, one of his daughters, was saying she really thought she could do it. And she really thought the sales team trusted her and that she was their best salesperson at that point. And, she was the right person. And he kept saying, no, I don't think so. I'm not sure. I don't know. And then, thank goodness, I had this question come flying out of my mouth that said, who's talking? Is this dad talking from the family circle? Or is this current sales leader talking from the business circle? And he took a moment and he said, Dad's talking. Dad is worried she's not going to have enough time to spend with her kids because I regret not having enough time to spend with my kids. Wow. That was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. That, it just hit me as you're saying that makes me love that whole 3 circles model and this whole process even more. Is when you're saying that, you're almost getting into like this IFS or this internal family systems work, where it's like parts work. Which part of you is saying that? Yes. And there's so much power in separating that out. And yeah, that just kind of gave me chills. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
It gave me chills and I got to be there. Yeah, that right there. Yeah. Then I said, well, what does the business leaders say here? And he said, I can't think of anybody I'd trust more with that team. It was just so obvious. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid that story makes it sound like, oh, look how cool Sarah is. That's not the point. It's look how cool this model is, and that EOS gives family members the opportunity to talk about that. We were about to go down a route where this daughter was saying, why doesn't my dad believe in me? Why isn't he proud of me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that wasn't what was happening at all.
Yeah. It's when you think about all of the different parts of people that are at work in any situation, it's easy to see how conflict can arise and how it can become unhealthy so quickly. But I think that's where it is your zone of genius, to help people get to that moment of what are the 2 parts that are supposed to be aligned in this moment that you are helping people get to. That is so amazing. And so I hope that those who are listening that may be struggling with some of that conflict, or maybe that those 3 circles of family, ownership, and business are basically just one circle, and it's just hard to get that detached. I think that's where you can look at Sarah's work, and Sara can help you to maybe unpack that a bit and work through that. And as I understand it, there are some new courses that you have that help family businesses to, work through this. Can you talk about those and share a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yes, this is I guess a passion project, but that makes it sound like it's a hobby. It's like I was compelled to make these courses. So one is for advisors. I think it's sad. I think still most family business owners don't know the 3 circle model, and most advisors don't either. Right. So the advisor course is there to help any advisor, whether it's a psychologist, a therapist, a religious leader, a financial advisor, be able to see their family businesses and help their family businesses separate those 3 circles. And see how that works and and describes what a 100% healthy family business would look like, which will never happen. That is absolutely never going to happen. I have this close friend who says, all the normal families that those are just the families you don't know very well. So the perfectly healthy family businesses are the ones that don't exist, the ones right. You only think of. So so that's the course for advisors. And then for family businesses, it's a similar thing. Here's what 100% healthy would look like if you were the model, the Harvard business model. Here's specifically what that means and what it helps people start thinking about the first steps they could take to just get a little healthier today, and then a little healthier tomorrow, and then a little healthier the next day.
I love that. That's so good. And if people want to find those courses, How can they find them? Is it on your website, or where are you posting them?
Yeah. So sarabstern.com.
Yeah.
I love that my name is a sentence. So I'm not very good at being stern, but that happens to be my name. So Sara B Stern, not BE, just the letter B.com, has the Family Business Office Hour, and it has my courses there.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And definitely go to the Family Business Office Hour and check out these courses, because, while this episode we got into a lot of, some of the deep conversations around how we can communicate with family and how we can organize our family, our ownership, and our business. Every family business, and I'm sure you've experienced this throughout your, many, many decades of working with family businesses, Sara, that every family business is unique and different. And while there's some similar frameworks that can work, each situation is different, and we need to honor those differences and work through them individually. And that's where someone like Sara Stern can help. Whether it's implementing EOS in your business, helping you with succession or transition plan, or just, maybe talking you through a specific thing that's going on in your business. Sara, this has been a real pleasure. I've been looking forward to this, and everybody I talk to that knows you says that you're one of their favorite people, and now you're one of my favorite people. And I'm just really grateful for this opportunity.
I really appreciate you having me. This is incredible. And I want to say thank you. It was listening to one of your episodes. I was considering my 10-year target for my business used to be that I would help 60,000 family businesses. And it was listening to your podcast, I realized that was too small, and I changed it to 600,000.
Wow.
Added a 0 because of your podcast. So thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this podcast.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you. And I'm sorry that you're going to have to do 10 times no, I'm just,
it's perfect. Yeah.
No, it's going to be great. And whatever I can do to support you in helping those 600,000 families, let's make it 1 million and do it together. I'm all on board. And
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, thank you, Sara, so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I hope those of you who are listening got a lot from this episode. And if you have, please share it with someone. Please share it with someone who's never heard the 3 circles model, or who's never thought about implementing EOS in their business. Just share this episode and spread the word. Help Sara to help those 600,000 family businesses. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Fearless Family Business Show. If you're enjoying this show, please thumbs up this episode and subscribe wherever that subscribe button is. And you'll get more family business education and insights in your inbox. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, a colleague, a spouse, your mom, your dad, a second cousin, whomever you think might benefit from hearing this show. And if you're in a family business and you've got a great story to share, contact me, because I would love to see if you'd be a great fit for this show. I'd love to interview you. Or if you're struggling in your family business to find your unique identity or voice, or you need an injection of new life into your family business, I'd also love to hear from you. I'd love to learn more about you, and I'd love to see if I can help. Simply email me at adam@fearlessfamilybusiness.com, and we'll get you connected to the right place. Together, we can elevate the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle we all experience in our family businesses. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.